Have you fallen in love with the storybook ending?
That is also a compelling question there, Steve.
We used that last week.
I know, but this one's compelling too.
Good to see. I'm not sure about the shirt though, but
oh, come on, this is a great shirt. Let's talk about family
meals.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Going back to, hey, let's pull out the cell phone basket and put the phones in. That's cooler than my Iron Man. I was initially thinking, well, I don't know though. I like the message. I do like the message.
That's what I was going for. That's definitely what I was going for. I wanted that message.
So if you're not watching, it says "Let's taco." It's a dad joke.
It's definitely a dad joke.
Taco about
family meals.
Oh.
Eating together as a family is a good thing.
It is a good thing.
But that's not the compelling question we're here to discuss.
Yeah, I asked you if you have fallen in love with the storybook ending.
I fall in love with the storybook ending all the time.
You know who falls in love with the storybook ending?
All of us.
Every team, every coach, every parent, every player at the beginning of a season. Yep. I mean, where do you go from there? But I mean, is there more than just, yep, we do it? I mean, it sounds like we're making a mistake. Are we making a mistake?
Yes. Yes, because I think when we fall in love with the storybook ending and then we don't realize that there's a lot of effort that goes into making the storybook ending happen. And, you know, we're
say work?
Yeah.
You said work.
I said work. There's a lot of work that goes into that. And this is one of the things where you blame society for it. And it's not wrong, because society gives us these, huge, wonderful stories where the hero wins in the long run, but we just hear the story and we get to the ending in an hour, 2 hours, maybe a little longer.
Yeah, but when I watched Rocky, I mean, I saw him in the meat locker punching the beef.
Mm-hmm.
I saw him trying to catch the chicken.
Mm-hmm.
But it still shows a very short time duration.
Yeah, and watching someone chase the chicken and punch the beef and try to get all the, watching him do that, it still happens really fast. There's a sexy soundtrack that goes along with it that makes you love it. You're like, oh yes, and it gets you all fired up. But then when it comes to reality, it happens so slowly over time, and that work is not glorified. It's not on the big screen. It's not you, boom. And more often than not, it's about experiencing the agony of defeat.
You brought it up.
Well, we don't see that. And we kind of feel it, like sticking with your Rocky idea, we kind of feel it when we see Rocky lose. We kind of feel that. And that's why we like it, because we see somebody else suffer but then we see him come back as a likable character. But yeah, it's easy to fall in love with it.
It is. And I mean, I wrote this in a post the other day. We're attracted to triumph. And I think it's because we want to experience it in our own ways. But I'm thinking of endings. You brought up the agony of defeat.
Uh-huh.
This is from my childhood, and I think it kind of faded away later. This was really big in the 70s and 80s. There was a show called Wide World of Sports on ABC.
I remember it.
And there was an announcer, Jim McKay. He became famous for this little opening reel that they would show, and he talked about, what was it? I've got to look in my notes here. Well, it was just the phrase, the thrill of victory. And I don't remember what they were showing. Do you even remember what they were showing during the thrill of victory?
I want to say it was the 1980 Olympics.
The hockey team?
The hockey team winning from, the movie Miracle.
But the show actually started back in the 60s. Anyway, there may have been more than that. There may have been a little montage, but I know what I will never forget
The agony of defeat part.
Do you remember the agony of defeat?
Yeah.
They showed a skier that goes off of the track or something, and he is just like wiping out and tearing off signage.
Yeah.
And it is hard. It's
rough fall.
It is very rough. It is really a good. They could probably go to the X Games now and or Nitro Circus and find some more good agony of defeats footage, or just go to YouTube, because now people just film agony of defeat over and over again.
Yeah.
But it really showed kind of the highs and the lows. And I actually think, you may disagree with this, Coach Crandall, but I actually think that it is good for us to watch the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. Even though, like, we're all searching for the thrill of victory.
Mm-hmm.
We all want that. We want that individually. And I don't root for other people to lose. Well, I guess I just lied, because as a Red Sox fan, I like it when the Yankees lose. Am I a bad person?
No, you're just a Red Sox fan.
And to all the Yankees people, maybe, yeah.
Well, but the Yankees feel the same way. Right. They're happy if New York wins, and they're happy if Boston loses. So Duke and Carolina, it's like you can pick any rivalry. Ohio State, Michigan. You know, Ohio State's my favorite team, and my next favorite team is whoever's Michigan playing. No, I'm just saying.
You were throwing out the bumper sticker there. My favorite team is Ohio State, and anybody that beats Michigan.
Yeah, and that's how we feel, and we have
nobody beat Michigan last year, by the way.
That's true.
Ohio State fans. So.
That is true. Don't twist the knife there. Football season's coming up. That's a bone of contention.
Football season is coming up. We are right in the middle of the Olympics. You mentioned the 1980 hockey team. That is a distinct memory for me, because I watched the when they beat the Soviet Union, and then later, and I'm drawing a blank now. I used to talk about this in my sports psychology classes. I can't remember who they beat to win the actual gold medal. They had to beat somebody else beyond Sweden. And I was a teenager. I watched that live on a crappy old color TV that was not flat screen, was not HD. And I can still hear Al Michaels with that final call, "Do you believe in miracles?" Yes. And that was awesome. I also, do you have an Olympic memory?
My Olympic memory is a little cheesier. I don't remember much. Like, I remember some Olympic moments, obviously that 1980 hockey game, but I remember just being so into the Olympics, the Winter Olympics in 1984 in Sarajevo, Yugoslavia. And I remember loving watching the bobsledding. And so I had my mom get me.
Why bobsledding?
It was just interesting. Like, it was fat. I don't know. It was my 10-year-old mind. Anyway, I had my mom get a whole bunch of poster boards, and I cut them up, and then I got out the masking tape and I taped them all together, and I made this huge bobsled track in our basement that like started way up here and then went back and forth and down and around. And I would put marbles in it, and I would have the marbles be the bobsleds and go through it, and I would time them and see which of the marbles was the fastest bobsled. That's my Olympic memory.
See, parents, you don't need to go out and buy them a $500 gaming system. You can.
I was built different.
That's cool. One of my, I don't know why I just thought of this, but this has stuck with me forever. I was watching downhill skiing in '76, Innsbruck, Austria. And I wasn't into skiing, but it was cool to watch the downhill because they go so fast. And it's a test. I don't know how long it is, but it's a real athletic test. And there was this guy named Franz Klammer, and he was the hometown guy, and he was an Austrian, and he set a world record, and he skied like a madman. He always looked like he was it's like he's going to go through this next gate or around this next corner, and he's going to be the agony of defeat guy. he's going to be the new guy because there is no way he can keep this all together. And if he crashes, death is imminent. I mean, he is going to die. And I watched him live set the world record, and it was just so exciting. I mean, talk about the thrill of victory. But my favorite Olympic moment, Coach Crandall, was Derek Redmond at Barcelona. And he was the 400-meter runner, and I can relate a little bit. I'm not an Olympian and I'm not that fast, but I ran the 400 in high school and was moderately successful. It is a tough race. Anyway, he rips his hamstring during the final 100 meters. And just talk about the agony of defeat, just how heartbreaking it was. But one of the coolest things ever, he gets up off the ground, which I don't know how he did this because I've torn a hamstring. It is extremely painful and debilitating. You just want to lay there in the fetal position and cry. He stands to his feet and just starts kind of hopping towards the finish line, and you can see he's in pain. This is pure anguish, and his dad hops the fence. I don't know I still wonder how he got away with that, but
because it was 1992, not 2024.
But he opts out of the stands and he runs out there and is telling his son, "You don't have to finish this." And Derek's telling him, I have to finish. And his dad ends up helping him across the finish line. And that was so moving to me. That was the thrill of victory.
And a storybook ending.
Not the storybook that they probably had fallen in love with.
And that's the big key. That's the big key. And that's where we all screw this up, is that when we look at the storybook ending, we picture in advance what we want it to end like. And then if it doesn't end that way, we get really frustrated. And what we forget is that we're scripting the story as we go.
Boy, this relates to a lot of things. This relates to marriage, jobs, parenting,
kids' athletic journeys. Your teen athlete and performer. This is the experience. Every season that they go through, every performance, all the things they go through. They have a picture, a story in mind of how they want it to end, and they fall in love with it. And then when it doesn't go that way, that's where a lot of your problems come from.
So is there a question that we can ask the parents that will help them to move in the direction of not falling in love with that story, which can be, I suppose if it happens, great, but we know that in reality that it often does not happen. So
right.
what do you have a question you could ask them?
How can you adjust and adapt? How can you coach your kids as they adjust and adapt to the changing circumstances? And so as they're looking at their season, because not everybody's season goes great.
Really?
No.
Oh.
Some teams actually have poor records. Some teams get off to a 2-10 start, or, some teams start really strong and then they hit a rough spot. And every season's a little bit different. But as we go along, it's all about adjusting and adapting.
And I think you could also say this about individual games and performances.
Mm-hmm.
We coached a lot of games collectively, and I would go into games because you want to have a goal, right? You want to have a vision and you're working towards this. But there were many times where what was happening was not the chapter book I had written. And it's more shocking when it's not in your favor. For example, you go into I went into a state championship game where I really believed my first chapter, the first quarter, I believed that we were going to be close with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I had fallen in love with that story, and I was selling that story. And no, we were down like 15 to, I don't know, maybe 15 to 20 in the first quarter. It was dramatic. Now, so would you say that I was wrong
To
going into that?
have no, I mean
So
that's productive. It's good to know this is how I want this to go, and you work towards that. And as long as you're putting in the work, that it's great to work in that direction. But when things don't go the way that you want, when you experience a little bit of the agony of defeat, whether it's momentary or even bigger, how do you get back up? How do you keep going and pressing forward even when it's hard?
so would you say, I mean, we were disappointed and we tried to, adapt and adjust, do everything we could. I wouldn't say I went into that game falling in love with the story. So what does that really mean? Falling in love with the storybook ending. Storybook ending. That's the key, I think.
Yeah.
I'm going back to the original question. The storybook ending that everything's just going to work out perfectly.
Yeah. That you win the championship, that you get, and that really is the problem. We fall in love with that end, the result that we think will equal the thrill of victory. And
that everything will be great if that happens.
Mm-hmm. And you've heard the cliche, there's 32 teams and only one can win a championship. There's 30 teams, there's 28, however many teams there are, only one team can win a championship. But every team falls in love with that idea of, oh, wow, we can win a championship. But only one actually gets one. So what we end up doing is we fall in love with something that's largely out of our control and is totally results-based. And those are both really, really risky things to plan your psychological well-being around.
Okay, so I've got a question for you. Back to the Olympics theme. And boy, I just cannot get that image out of my mind of that skier. I can't even remember the last time I've seen that, but I watched it so many times. I can see that skier like spinning and going on the top of that barrier or that rail or whatever. When we're done, I'm gonna have to go look at it. Maybe we should put a link in the
find
show
it and put the link on there.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same phenomenon with reality TV. Like we have this sick fascination with other people's misery.
And like watching the Yankees lose.
Right. And if we don't like the Yankees, then we feel really good about that. It's like I don't feel good about my life, but I know that they're miserable and that makes me feel a little bit better right now.
Oh, this sounds. Is this the old Schadenfreude?
Yeah, Schadenfreude. Schadenfreude.
My German not so good, but malicious pleasure, taking delight in the misfortune of others.
Yeah. Well, it's unfortunate how popular this has become, because we have the top 10 and then we have the not top 10. And people watch the not top 10 more than they watch the top 10. And we live in, I honestly believe that this culture, this whole idea of misery is part of why our kids, our performing teens and athletes now feel more pressure, because more of their performances are videotaped and are out there for everybody. And anytime they fail, there's a level of permanence that goes along with that.
This is going to be shown. People are going to watch this.
This is going to be shown, and they know how much pleasure they take in watching other people fail. And so the fear becomes, if I fail, other people are going to take pleasure in my failure.
Is this obsession with watching other people's failure, is this coming from a place of inferiority? Is this, or does this help us to feel like, okay, I fail, because we all fail, right? Even the best athletes in the world fail. Okay, this makes me feel a little bit more normal because I know other people fail, and so I like watching them fail because it makes me feel better. I'm more normal.
Yeah, and that's the idea of the Schadenfreude, is when we see other people fail, it makes us feel a little bit better. And for differing reasons, depending on who's failing and what our relationship to them is.
So I don't want to just immediately climb to the top summit, the peak of moral superiority. How can we teach our kids because I still keep thinking of the Yankees, and I just want them to lose. Is there a
Yankees fans, please email us at createtransformbecome@gmail.com.
I just have fun with it. I don't lose a lot of sleep over it. But the Yankees are doing well this year, and so I have not got the voodoo dolls out yet, so just okay, get back on track here. How can we focus on the thrill of victory? So here's the original question I was going to ask you before we went down that strudel-laden Schadenfreude lane. Okay, your teen is and please don't call me a dream killer, okay? But your teen is likely to not be an Olympic athlete.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, how can we find and celebrate triumphs in their athletic journey, in their performance journey, in their school journey?
Everybody on their journey experiences triumphs, but only the select few get those big ones. Only one person wins the gold, but every single person can get back up and try again. And as a parent, our mission should be to notice when our kids are experiencing those triumphs. What did we see? What did they overcome today? What did they accomplish today? And am I calling it out?
Yeah, because there's a whole bunch of Derek Redmonds. But we only see Derek Redmond because he was one of the 8 runners that made the finals of the 400 meters in the 92 Olympics.
Mm-hmm. That's actually a really good example. I'm glad you brought that up, because his dad coming out and helping him get that was a triumph. The fact that he got across that finish line with a torn hamstring, that's a bit of a triumph. And
I would also say it's a triumph that you have a father-son relationship there,
huge triumph,
where that could happen, because not every athlete their dad isn't there, or they have a great relationship but he couldn't be at the event, or there's all sorts of scenarios. But that's a triumph that they have that kind of relationship. It's awesome.
And another way to rethink about this is and this is why I love the question, are you falling in love with the storybook ending? These are all just part of a bigger journey. Losing in a state championship game, it sucks. It's not fun, but it's part of a bigger journey than just that. And so, if your story is the finish of your sport and winning a trophy, that's going to be a problem. That's going to be a problem. But if you have a context where there's a bigger picture, and you wanted to win this really bad, we wanted to do this, but we didn't, but we're going to get back up. You look at like Virginia, the college basketball team, first number 1 seed to ever lose in the history of the tournament. That's a bad thing. That's a big, bad failure. And everybody,
that is agony for Cavalier fans.
To be, and they forever will be the first team to lose as a number 1 seed. But what did they do the next year?
They won the
championship. And so it created this context where you have this bad experience that's going to stick, but they didn't let that be the end. They just made it part of a bigger journey. And this is why the danger comes in with, do you fall in love with the storybook ending? Because if it doesn't end in a storybook fashion, how can you put that in a bigger, broader context? And this is what we've got to get good at helping our kids do.
So you're saying it's okay to have this storybook ending as a goal.
Yeah.
But be prepared to have a
pencil and
a pencil and an eraser as you're writing this story, because chapter 6 may be different than what you thought it was going to be.
You brought up the hero's journey, not in this episode, but as we were prepping for this, you brought up this idea of the hero's journey, and every hero's journey has this. That's why we like to see Rocky win, because Rocky gets his butt kicked, and then he gets back up and he trains.
Sure.
You overcome.
You overcome adversity.
This is just something for them to overcome. But as a parent coach, this is what we want to be good at with our kids is, can we help our kids identify the triumphs, the smaller ones, that will help them have the courage and strength to get back up and keep building and trying again. And even if they don't get the state championship, even if they don't get the gold medal, they don't get the big time scholarship, they get value out of it. And the relationship's the most important part. Derek Redmond's relationship with his father is the biggest win in that whole thing.
Okay, we're going right to Creation Corner. You have a great exercise for parents that is, I think there's a lot of things you can do, but I think this is a great one to focus on and challenge parents on to do this week.
Yeah, super simple, but very, very life-changing if you do it consistently. And that's the key to this one is you can't do it once and it be good enough. You've got to be consistent with it. So the challenge with the Creation Corner is create a list, a daily list of 5 things that went well.
And you're talking the parents.
Right. Start with yourself, because this is a habit that you have to train into your own mind. Can you notice the wins that you have in the day? You got cut off in traffic, but you chose not to flip the driver off and lose your mind. You didn't cuss when they cut you off. That's a win. And it might not seem like a big deal, but that's a win for you. What are the wins you had during the day? And if you catch 5 of those, now you start to train yourself. Notice the wins, notice the wins, notice the wins. And as you get better at it, now you're going to start to notice your kids' wins. And you're going to notice the other good things that are going on. And if you can do that, now you're going to help them notice the little triumphs and celebrate those wins as they go.
I love it.
Pretty simple.
And if you're both doing it, I mean, if you can get to the point where you're both doing it, what a great teamwork opportunity that is for parents and teens.
Start with 5 for yourself, then encourage your kids to do 5, then sit down together and listen to each other's lists, and then add 1 to each other's lists. I listen to my kid and they're like, okay, I did these 5 things. And then I'd be like, oh yeah, well, you also did this. Write that down too.
Perfect. Great wrap. Okay. We'll see you next episode. Visit us at createtransformbecome.com. If our website is finally up, it's good. It better be up by the time this episode airs. You can find us on YouTube. And parents, you can do this. You can do this.
Keep it up.
On behalf of Steve Galley, I'm Nate Crandall, and we thank you, our loyal listeners, for tuning in to this episode. If you love what you're learning from the Stop Parenting and Start Coaching podcast, we would appreciate it very much if you would leave us a 5-star review and some glowing comments. We also encourage you to share this episode with your friends and family who are parents of athletes and performers. And if you want to explore further and see what Steve and I are creating to help thousands of parents, athletes, and performers, please visit our company's website at createtransformbecome.com. That's createtransformbecome, all one word, .com. There you'll find a growing number of resources to help you elevate your performance. Thank you again for your support, and we encourage you to create a magical relationship with your athlete and performer.